Where was the member for Kingston and the Islands? Where was Mark Gerretsen when the Canadian representative in Ukraine was summoned by President Zelensky? Did Mr. Gerretsen take to Twitter? Did he stand up in the House of Commons to tell his government to listen to President Zelensky? No. No, he was silent. Where were the other members of this committee? Where was Yvonne Baker? Not a single member of the Liberal caucus criticized the Prime Minister's decision to supply a turbine which was designed to facilitate the export of Russian gas to Europe and a sanctions exemption. This was condemned roundly, personally, by President Zelensky. He described it correctly as a manifestation of weakness, and he summoned the Canadian representative to Ukraine. We had the ambassador to Ukraine before the Foreign Affairs Committee denouncing that decision as it related to the turbine. This wasn't the first or the last time that this government ignored the needs of Ukraine. Not what I say Ukraine needed, but what the Ukrainians said they needed. It wasn't the first time, and it would not be the last. On March 29th, earlier that year, very shortly after the invasion, Conservatives put forward a motion in the House to allow visa-free travel for Ukrainians fleeing the war. This motion, by the way, was supported by all of the opposition parties, Conservative, Bloc, and NDP. That meant it passed. So the House of Commons passed a motion calling on the government to allow visa-free travel for Ukrainians. The Liberals not only voted against it, but they failed to implement it, even after the express will of the majority of the House of Commons was decisively stated on that. Mr. Gerretsen is here. How did Mr. Gerretsen vote? He voted no. A month after the invasion, he voted against our motion for visa-free travel for Ukraine. All of the Liberal members either voted against or they didn't bother to show up for that vote. So we had the refusal of that support from this government, a refusal to implement the will of Canada's elected House of Commons. We had in the summer the government denounced and condemned by the President of Ukraine for breaking Western sanctions unity, and no statements whatsoever from backbench or otherwise members of the government. And no surprise. No surprise. Because while members of this government across the way are interested in trying to use something for political points, they have consistently voted against our proposals that would have made a concrete difference to help Ukraine. Just last week, at this committee, Conservatives put forward a motion which would have expanded the scope of Bill C-57 that would have allowed us to move forward with constructive amendments that would remove red tape and ease the process of weapon sales to Ukraine. Liberals opposed that motion. Liberals and New Democrats, unfortunately, together blocked our efforts to expand the scope of the bill. That would have made a real concrete difference to people in Ukraine.